Welcome to That Transit Show. I'm Monica Spain. And guess what? It's here. Sound Transit's Link 2 line is running across Lake Washington. And today we're talking with Rachelle Cunningham, a public information officer at Sound Transit. She's going to tell us everything we need to know. Welcome aboard. Well, Rachelle Cunningham, welcome to That Transit Show.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
I know. We're both public information officers. I'm at Community Transit. You're at Sound Transit. We're on the phone every week, but we rarely get to see each other in person.
It's true. I think, the last time we got together was maybe one of the last Link openings. It was Redmond or one of those. So
exactly.
Got to do these more often.
I know. I totally agree. So, and we're talking about the 2 line today, which is just so exciting.
Yeah.
2 lines open now. And, Dow Constantine, the Sound Transit CEO, he called this the most transformative and consequential day for transit in our region. And so, that's big, Rachelle. This is big for Sound Transit, big for people who live here.
It's big for everybody in the entire region. He's not wrong. He's absolutely right with that. Yeah, this connects, north, south, east, west. So we have really a transit network now rather than a couple of, separated lines. And bus service. So yeah, transformational is the word.
So tell me, I want to know what it felt like the first time you rode the 2 line, especially across the floating bridge, because that's something really new. It's not just new for the region. It's new. Isn't it the first time?
Anywhere. Yeah, it's the first time in the world that this has ever been done. So it's very exciting. And I think the most interesting thing about the first trip over the floating bridge was that aren't even aware that you're going over a floating bridge. Like, it doesn't move or anything. It's just like any other track, but you look out the window and there's this beautiful view of Lake Washington and the mountain if it's out. Mm-hmm. So it was super smooth, super, super easy, and just sort of kind of surreal, I guess, just because it has been such a long time coming.
Yeah, it has been a long time coming, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah. But tell us, what are the new opportunities that people have for getting around the region? You mentioned like north, south, east, west. What's going to open up for people? What kinds of possibilities?
Oh, so many, everything really. And I'm a Snohomish County resident myself, so I think this is going to be great for everybody. But for us up in the north end, it's going to be amazing because we have all of the options just right there. So the 1 and 2 lines are both going to serve Snohomish County. So we're going to have twice the frequency to get places except for the airport. We'll talk about the airport.
Okay.
But we're going to have twice the frequency and a lot more capacity. So, your wait time is less. You can go to the Eastside. You can go to the airport with a transfer, unless you get on a different train. So there's, I think people, as you're thinking about all of the different places you can go, you have to pay a little bit more attention to sort of the train you're getting on, whether it's a 1 or 2.
Okay, so that means looking at the head sign?
At the head signs, and there should be announcements in all of the stations. And the 2 line is only going to run 2-car trains, so those will be shorter. And we've been saying during simulated service, shorter train, shorter trip. But the trip will be long if you stay on the 2 line, starting when service begins.
So with simulated service, I'm sure you got a lot of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering what kinds of things you heard. And then how is that experience going to be different now that it's open?
We heard that people were very happy to have the extra trains. People just love being able to step up to the platform and have to wait pretty much every 4 to 5 minutes rather than like 8 to 10 that we've been used to having. So the difference between simulated service and regular service is that the 2 line trains will not stop in International District. They'll stop there. You can get off, but that won't be the last stop. So if you stay on, you're going to the east side. So that's the difference. People who've gotten on the 2 line will just have to be prepared to get off if they're not going to Bellevue or Mercer Island or Redmond. Okay,
say I missed that stop. Where am I going to get off? And then how much time do you think it'll take to get back on track to where I wanted to go?
The good thing is you won't have to cross the lake. So we'll have a station at Judkins Park, which is still in Seattle. So that'll be the first stop after International District as the train heads east. So you can get off there and head back. You probably only have to wait a few minutes to make the transfer. And if you're going to the airport, you're going to have to transfer again when you go back to International District. So, probably don't do that if you can avoid it. There are also bus
Noted.
options. I mean, I think if you got off the train at Judkins Park, there are bus options that you could hop on a bus and get to the airport there too. So, the trip planners that we have are going to be, I think, really useful tools for people as they start being able to go different places, Marymoor Park, for the concerts, and to the airport, and to Bellevue for shopping, and all of these things. And people in Snohomish County aren't going to have to switch trains to do that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be awesome.
So exciting. So, let's talk about the trip planning tools since you brought it up. There might be people who for the first time are thinking about taking light rail. Maybe it hasn't been convenient, or maybe they work on the east side and this is an opportunity to leave the car at home. So can you kind of walk us through how to plan a trip if you're going to the east side? Like what tools would you use? Where would you start?
I think I would start on soundtransit.org. On the top of our webpage on the left is the trip planner. And so it has options for Link, ST Express, and Sounder. So make sure you click on the Link icon, or you could probably just put the address in that you want. You probably have to know which mode you're taking, if it's Link or bus, or which line. So we don't. It's not super intuitive yet, I think, but we'll get there.
So I mean, if I'm a Google user, I can also use that.
Absolutely,
as well. Like kind of whatever you're more comfortable with.
Right, and the transit app works really well. So fortunately, we have all of these online tools that people can use.
Yeah.
And you guys have a good trip planner too.
We have a trip planner. We also, we have a couple options for people. We tell people call customer care. Like if you want, if you don't have a phone, or if you want like more personalized service, like people can call us and we'll walk you through that. We also do one-on-one trip planning. So we will actually ride with people from their house, I guess all the way over to Redmond now, if that's where they wanted to go. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, so we want to make it easy for people, and I know you guys do too.
Yeah,
I mean that's part of why we're talking today. But another thing is payment. Like people, there are now new options to pay in the region. There's tap to pay, so people can use their credit card or their phone wallet. Can they buy tickets also?
They can
for the train.
Yeah, if people want to do that, if they want to have a paper ticket, we still have the ticket vending machines at all of the stations. They can do that, but it's pretty easy just to, if you have your credit card handy, just to tap that, or your Orca card.
But
yeah, and we also have the Transit Go app that people can use. So pretty much any way that you're able to pay for it, we'll take it.
Yeah.
Get you where you need to go.
So as a Snohomish County person, what other destinations are you excited about being able to frequent? Where do you want to go on a train?
Go everywhere. So here's the thing. So for the people in this region who haven't maybe experienced the 2 line on the east side yet, because you have to drive to the east side at this point, or you did before. It's a really scenic view. It's a really pretty trip. So where would I go? Downtown Bellevue is great. I would go there. I would also go, for the shopping. There's an arts district in the Spring District area where there's a ton of art. I would go there. Redmond, you've got the Microsoft campus. There's a really pretty bridge there that people can see. There's a good coffee shop. And then the downtown
Like
Redmond,
right by the station?
Yeah, right by the station. It's called Dote Coffee, I think. I'm not really sure. I shouldn't be giving them... I shouldn't be misadvertising
That's
them.
okay.
But it's a
We
coffee
wanna know all
shop.
the
It's right there.
destinations.
Yeah. And then, downtown Redmond, of course, is the terminus. And there's tons of things. Redmond Square is right there. And, lots of things to walk to. So, I think you can't really go wrong. And people might just want to hop on to see what's there. And it's a really pretty ride.
Yeah, it's funny because I used to work on the east side, and you mentioned some of these places. I haven't been there at all to any of those places in a long time.
Yeah.
So, and one of the reasons is I didn't want to drive there, know? So, you could like make a day of it. A lot of people think about taking the train for work, to commute, but I hear what you're saying, or to go to school, whatever. But I hear what you're saying is like, make a day of it. Like it's a beautiful view.
It really is. And it's not just for work. And I think we're finding that, now as, people's travel patterns have changed after the pandemic, it's more of an all-day thing. People are using the train and transit to get everywhere now, which is just awesome. So,
well, that view that goes over Lake Washington, of course, is, I love it, but I want to hear about what went into actually making that happen, because I know this was like from an engineering standpoint, this was huge.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are other places in the world looking to Sound Transit at what you've done and asking a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So like in a way that everyone can understand, tell us about that.
Well, the planning for it has been going on for decades. I mean, really since like the 1970s. So the I-90 bridge was constructed or reconstructed, I guess, to accommodate, the high capacity transit. So there was a legislative body that was put together to sort of Blue Panel Commission, I believe, and they analyzed what all of the challenges were. They identified like 20 some issues that we had to overcome in order to build the light rail on the bridge, and we did. And a few of the biggest things were, the weight, obviously, because it's floating. So we had to find lighter weight rail.
Yeah.
The fixation had to be different because you don't want to drill holes in the bridge. So there was water coming into the bridge. There was the weight of it. You're running electrical trains on water. So had to figure out how to deal with, the electrical current, because if that got back into the bridge structure over time, it would corrode the steel, and we want the bridge to be strong for its entire lifetime. So had to figure out how to deal with that. But
wow.
It was a lot of smart people really thought about this. But I think, I think one of the challenges that people are most probably familiar with is we call it the track bridge, which is sort of it goes over the expansion joints where the fixed bridge meets the floating bridge. And at that point, there's, some motion. The bridge moves in 6 different directions, depending on traffic and wind and sort of the waves and things. So it was a way, figuring out a way to get a train, which is very rigid, to sort of be able to transition through this kind of wiggly little part there. So the track bridge is built with bearings and things that they use in seismic instances, like for building structures, to keep buildings from moving or being damaged in seismic activity. So these react to the bridge as it moves, and it just keeps a smooth, straight path for the train to travel. And you won't even know it. It's pretty amazing. So that was pretty brilliant.
As a relative of mine grew up in Bellevue, and he always talks about, they had a Volkswagen bus, and it talks about how when they were going over the bridge, they would roll down all the windows so the air could pass through, so that the bus would, so it's like a similar sort of situation. Yeah. So where, wind can affect, but everything that you've done with this construction, it sounds like it was to mitigate that.
A lot of it was, yeah. We post-tensioned the bridge, which meant we sort of put steel cables from either end and pulled them tightly together to make the bridge more stable and to keep it from micro cracking and all of that stuff. So there was a ton of stuff that went into this, and it's been tested and is working just as it's expected to. So very safe, very safe and very smooth and very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people, talk about frustrations with the delays and things like that with this project. But I mean, can you talk about like help us feel good about why that is?
Yeah, there were some delays, and a lot of it had to do with some of it was COVID, when everything sort of shut down at that time. So that slowed things down. There was a concrete strike that slowed things down, and then specific to this project, we had some construction quality issues that we discovered, not on the bridge itself, but on some of the highway on either end of it. So it was frustrating to have to fix those things, but at the same time, I mean, we're confident now. We wanted to do it right rather than do it fast. So took the time to replace all of those. They're called plinths. They're the blocks that hold the rail. So getting through that and making sure that they're right, that everybody can be confident now that, it's a system that's operating and it's going to keep operating and will be smooth and great for everybody for a long time to come. So, and I hope that, now that we're up and running and people can really take advantage of this, that, maybe we won't worry about that so much anymore. I hope.
Yeah. Just enjoy the view.
Enjoy the view. Yeah, it is. It's a huge project. I think this is probably one of the biggest ones. And I guess delays are to be expected, but getting it right is ultimately the most important.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as the stations go, what might people notice? Is there anything different at any of the stations? I mean, I know there's different art that kind of like designates each station, but what other things might people notice? Is there anything new?
So Mercer Island, both Mercer Island Station and Judkins Park Station, those are the two new stations. They're kind of in the freeway right of way. So you're going to notice that they have sound walls and the freeway is right there. They're very easy to get to. Mercer Island has a parking area. Judkins Park doesn't have parking, but you can get to it from two sides. You can get to it from the park that's right there, and you can also get to it from the street. So there is an at-grade crossing, and this is something we should make people aware of too. So what that means is that there is an area at the Judkins Park Station and others on the east side where the track actually crosses a walkway. So people need to really be aware of their surroundings. Take your headphones off. Don't look at your phone because you're going to be crossing an active trackway. There are barriers and alarms and things, but you have to know that there's going to be a train coming pretty quickly, and that's a new thing for a lot of people. So that's at Judkins Park and a couple of others. But the stations are big. They're actually really, really pretty. You'd mentioned the art. There's public art at each of the stations. At Judkins Park, we have the Jimi Hendrix, because that was around his area there, and I don't know all the details. I'm not a local, but yeah, so that we have that art, and then the windscreens on the inside of the station are Barbara Earl Thomas is a local artist and very famous, and sort of throughout the platform itself is a bunch of her artwork, so it's really pretty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds great.
And they've got boats on Mercer Island, and it's kind of more of a nautical theme in keeping with the island and the lake. So
you mentioned parking, and parking has been an issue at Linwood City Center. And I'm just wondering what advice you have for people in terms of planning ahead and maybe driving, if they're going to drive part of the way, if they're not able to take the bus to a train, which is what we always recommend.
Right.
What do people need to know about parking?
Don't count on it. If you're going, it's sad to say, but I think, if you're going to a big event, or, commuting in the morning when everybody else is. I think you have to sort of be aware that it's not likely you're going to get a parking spot at Linwood. As many spots as there are, they fill up really fast. It's a super, super popular station. So, what I have personally done is I've driven to Northgate. There's a lot of parking at Northgate if you can stand the traffic that far. But I think, this getting back to the whole, we're a system now, and finding another way to do it, finding another place to park and maybe taking a bus ride in from there, which is what I've learned to do. I actually take the Orange Line into Linwood City Center. And I think, kind of getting people maybe as they're planning their trip, sort of what's near me that isn't necessarily Link that can get me there quickly. So I think that's kind of an educational part of it, is getting people to think just beyond getting on the train. That's a really good point. And I think that there are other park and rides too in community transit's service area that are less busy. And like you said, you can take the Orange Line to Linwood City Center. So I think people should look into that. And, again, it goes back to planning your trip, planning in advance. Call us at customer care, go to the online trip planning tools and look at all the options, bus plus train, or you're driving a little further, carpooling. We also have microtransit. We have Zip Shuttle, and that serves Linwood City Center. So there's a possibility that if you live within the service area, you can even take take Zip Shuttle to get to the train station. Right, I've seen those around town. They're very cool.
Yeah. You mentioned big events, and we have probably the mother of all events coming with the World Cup coming, FIFA coming this summer, and of course the Mariners. Wow, they couldn't have. We're really rooting for them this year, hopefully, to get even further.
Right.
But there's concerts and other things. This seems like a really great option for people to explore.
It does, and it is, frankly. We have taken a lot of time this year, people may have noticed that we've had some shutdowns for maintenance. We've taken the time and we've implemented sort of monthly extended maintenance windows just to make sure that the system is operating properly and consistently to get people to all of these games and all of these events this summer. So it's been a little challenging, I think, for people on the weekends as we've sort of gotten things better shaped up. I don't know how to really put that. How we sort of did a glow up and
Well, it makes sense because there's going to be a lot of people writing this system. There are going to be people probably from, I mean, from out of town. People are coming from out of town. This is an international event.
Yes.
So I'm assuming like wayfinding and things will be tuned up also so that more people maybe who don't speak English will be able to get around more easily without, we'll all be doing this together.
And we've some of the announcements in the stations and on trains are going to be in different languages as well. So that was a really good point. So understanding that, a lot of people who are going to be using the system are not locals and don't know the places and just trying to make it as easy for them in their languages and making the wayfinding and signage clear as possible. And we're going to have a lot of staff ambassadors out during that time to give, the personal touch and help people who are needing it, a little bit more intensively. So all of our employees are going to be out during World Cup at each of our stations all the time to help.
It's going to be so fun.
It is.
Talk a little bit about safety on the system and what people should know if they see anything. I mean, it's rare.
Right.
We always say it is rare that something happens on transit that is, kind of an incident that affects people in an adverse way. But I mean, things happen or somebody might just be wondering, like, talk about that.
Sure. Security and safety are very important to people and very important to us. We have security personnel at each of our stations. They are there to assist and take care of any issue that may happen there. On the trains, we have them riding the system throughout, but not on every single train. So people should, if they see something strange or they're uncomfortable or, we ask them to text or call our security number. And I don't have that off the top of my head.
That's okay. We can add it in later and put it in the notes on our podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. So yes, we ask them. They can text it if they're not comfortable actually making the phone call. They can text security, and they should know what train they're on. Sort of what direction they're heading, and each of the cars has a number, sort of at the top.
Oh yeah. Where do you look for that?
It's at the ends of the cars, and it's usually pretty big. So tell them what car you're on, and what they'll do is they'll call security, and so at the next station the people who are there will board the train and help, and they're usually very fast. I've called a few times just because things look a little sketchy sometimes, and they're always really good about just coming on and seeing what's happening and giving that presence there. So it is rare, but
we want everyone to be prepared and feel confident
absolutely
about this.
Absolutely. And if it's an emergency, always call 911.
I think a lot of people think, especially with travel patterns changing after the pandemic, that it's just always going to be faster for me to hop in my car and drive across the bridge or drive to the airport. So what would you say to someone who thinks maybe that light rail can't compete with that?
I think when you have to talk about speed and reliability. I think those things go together. So at some times of day, yes, you might be able to get in your car and get there faster, but you never know what's going to happen, right? You could get in an accident, or God forbid you get in an accident. There could be an accident that's going to slow things down, or a road closure or something like that. So I think the real benefit of light rail is just the reliability of it. I mean, from start to finish how long it's going to take you to get there. And I would say that it's not necessarily the speediest trip sometimes, but you're able to plan ahead, and consistently get there when you need to get there.
Yeah. So like what are some travel times to maybe some common places that people might be interested in going?
Right.
Like the airport, large employers like Microsoft. From Snohomish County.
From Snohomish County. So say like if you're starting at Linwood, I would leave probably to get to the airport maybe an hour and a half, which sounds like a long time, but that way you're going to be comfortable and not having to worry about it. If you get on the 2 line, if you're going to the airport, get on the one line if you can.
Yeah.
If you can't or you haven't, then you need to transfer somewhere between Linwood and IDS and transfer. So that would take an extra few minutes. So I think if you leave maybe an hour and a half to get to the airport, you'll be in really good shape. It'd probably be about that long too if you were going to, say, Microsoft on the far east of the East Side. I think it would probably take a little more than an hour too. But that's time that you can be reading a book or doing some work or something, and you're not just pulling your hair out.
Is there
sitting in
Wi-Fi
traffic.
on the trains?
There is not Wi-Fi on the
Okay.
trains, but there is cell service.
Yeah.
So you can
Personal
work around it.
hotspot
Yes,
or
personal
whatever.
hotspots. So
Yeah.
so you can do that. And the other good thing about coming from Snohomish County is you pretty much always get a seat.
Yeah.
So if you're going somewhere, you can bring your luggage on, or just get comfortable. And
Okay, so that's one extra thing.
that is really,
One-
I don't know,
yeah.
I think we have it the best in Snohomish County.
Those little
Frequency.
extras
Yeah.
make it even more compelling.
Yeah.
With the travel times we're talking about, what about coming home to Snohomish County? Like, say I'm going to a concert at Marymore Park.
Okay.
What do I need to know about how late these trains run? I don't know if there's any changes to the hours. I'm assuming not. But tell us what the hours
Yeah,
are.
no, that's a really good question, especially with the summer coming up and everybody going to Marymore Park.
Yeah.
The hours are generally from about 5 in the morning until midnight on both lines. So that will actually give you enough time to get back to the train from a concert at Marymore. Most baseball games, but we're also most baseball games. We had a couple long ones this year, didn't we?
Did. Oh my gosh, it was so fun.
Yeah. In which case, we just started what we're calling the night bus.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot of details about that, but that's basically a service where people can take the bus from like the airport or downtown during the times that Link isn't running.
This is night owl
Yeah,
service
night owl
running
service.
overnight.
Yes,
Okay.
to accommodate that kind of
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah, because you want to plan, and I mean that's another thing. Community transit service doesn't run super late, so if you're coming back late on the train because your hours are later than ours are, you're going to need to plan how you're going to get home.
Yeah.
Because a bus may not be running at the
Right.
time that you get back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the planning ahead part.
This is all about planning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking about looking ahead, planning ahead, what is next, Rachelle?
Oh my gosh, what is next? I don't know. I can't really see. I'm still like loving this.
I know.
This is actually completes, the ST2 program that voters approved. So for a little while, well, the next thing, let's take it back. There will be the Pinehurst Station, which is in Shoreline. That will be opening in 2026. So that's next. Beyond that, I think it's buses. We have the bus rapid transit. Stride, yes.
Yeah.
Stride, BRT.
Stride is coming.
That's coming. That's being constructed. So that also helps folks out on the east side. So that'll be over I-405. You can get to Renton there, and it connects with Link at Bellevue and Linwood, and I think Shoreline too. So it's just expanding this network that we have and making different options for getting different places. Not just car or train. Now you're going to have car, bus, train.
Yeah.
Whatever, all of it. So.
Well, this is really exciting. I'm sure you've worked on this for a while, and it's great to see it happening
I
and
know.
people using it. So
Yeah,
it's so great having you here, Rachelle. Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.